Welcome back to the deep dive. So, you've brought us a really fascinating set of sources today, all centered around this guide, Mastering the Mind, a guide to inner victory.
I have, yeah.
And this isn't, just your typical self-help. It feels much more like a manual for mental combat, really. It's rooted in philosophy, but has all these surprising psychological hooks.
It really does. What's so interesting is how it just immediately redefines success. It basically argues that all those external problems we face, financial stress, career issues, they're just symptoms
Symptoms of what, exactly?
of one single internal cause. The guide makes this foundational claim right at the start.
hmm
The biggest war you will ever fight isn't out there in the world. It's with your own mind.
Okay, that's a huge premise. So let's unpack that.
Okay.
The guide is basically promising that if you can achieve that self-mastery, if your mind becomes a tool instead of an obstacle.
Then there's essentially nothing you can't achieve, which is a bold claim.
It's a very bold claim and a powerful incentive to really dig into this.
It is. Because it immediately puts the agency, the responsibility right back on you.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to distill the 5 really powerful, actionable methods the guide lays out.
Right.
It's a framework designed to turn the mind from this source of distraction and guilt into an engine for victory.
Before we get to the fixes, the guide does a great job of outlining the problem, the daily struggle, right? Waking up with no motivation, not wanting to learn, failing to quit bad habits, getting angry so quickly.
And that constant mental wandering.
Yeah, that wandering that leads to guilt at the end of the day. So where does all that fiction, where does it start?
Well, the source is absolutely clear. It starts and it ends in the mind.
Okay.
And it uses this incredible analogy to capture the root cause. It describes the mind as a monkey.
The monkey mind, I've heard that phrase.
Exactly. But this monkey isn't just jumping through trees. It's leaping between the regrets of the past and the anxieties of the future. The one place it refuses to land is right here in the present moment.
That's instantly relatable. We all feel that. And this is where it gets really interesting because the guide connects this idea to ancient wisdom. It quotes Gautama Buddha.
Mind is everything. What you think, you become.
Powerful.
It is. And the text explains the danger here is a key psychological mechanism. The mind doesn't really judge. It doesn't have a filter for good or bad or true or false. It's like fertile soil.
So whatever you plant.
Whatever seeds you plant repeatedly, whether they're constructive or destructive, it just accepts them and starts to grow them into your reality.
So that internal script we all have, I'm lazy, I can't do this, I always fail. The source is saying those aren't just thoughts, they're commands.
They are commands.
Ah.
And over time, they become a self-fulfilling prophecy. That repetitive narrative is the first thing you have to conquer. Which brings us right to the first method in the guide.
Method 1, positive self-talk. Now, my first reaction to that is that it sounds a little shallow, like putting a cheerful sticky note on your mirror.
And that's a fair critique. But the guide gives it weight by focusing on the subconscious mind. It calls it a recorder.
A recorder, okay.
So it's not about just being optimistic for the sake of it. It's about input control. The guide warns that if you constantly feed that recorder fear of failure, fear of what people think, it doesn't just hear the fear. It starts to actively build an environment that's ready for that failure. It prepares you to fail.
So the input literally creates the landscape. But how do you change that input when you're just not feeling it, when you feel cynical?
Well, this is where both the science and the spiritual wisdom it cites kind of converge. They recommend a very specific, structured practice.
Okay.
Every morning, you look in the mirror and you consciously affirm, today I am better than yesterday. I am moving towards my goal. But here's the crucial part, is how you frame setbacks. You have to see any failure not as a conclusion like, I failed, so I'm a failure, but strictly as a lesson.
A lesson versus a conclusion. That small shift in language feels huge. It stops that negative loop.
It stops it completely. A lesson means you're still moving forward. A conclusion just ends the story. By choosing that language, you're reprogramming the recorder.
So if step 1 is changing the dialogue, method 2 is giving that dialogue a target. Clear goal setting. I love the analogy here. A life without goals is like a letter with no address.
A wandering mind is an expensive liability, right?
Absolutely. But how does setting a goal actually focus a scattered mind beyond just, motivation?
This is where the source dives into some really practical neuroscience. It introduces the reticular activating system, or RAS.
The RAS, right. That's the brain's filtering mechanism in the brainstem. It decides what you notice and what you ignore.
Exactly. Think about it. Your brain is hit with millions of bits of data every second. It can't process it all. So the RAS acts as a gatekeeper. When you set a clear goal, like I want to start a business, you're giving the RAS a command.
And then you suddenly start noticing
You
things.
start seeing articles, hearing conversations, spotting opportunities related to that goal that you would have completely ignored before.
It's the classic example, isn't it? You buy a yellow car, and then you see yellow cars everywhere.
That's it, exactly. They were always there. Your RAS was just filtering them out. So the guide is really clear. Your goals have to be specific to activate this system properly.
Not just, I want to be rich.
No, that's too vague. It has to be, I will start this business and earn X amount in 1 year. That's an instruction set the RAS can actually work with. The mind stops being a monkey and it starts to become more like a laser pointer.
And that laser focus seems essential for what comes next.
It is.
Method 3 is about execution, time management. The guide says time is our greatest wealth, and that people who say, I don't have time, are really just saying, I don't know what's important.
And that unplanned life is a huge source of mental stress. The neurochemistry here is fascinating. When your brain knows what it's supposed to do and when, it dramatically reduces anxiety. Uncertainty just drains your energy.
And there's a reward system built in, too. The text says that planning your day and then actually checking things off the list, that releases dopamine.
It does. Dopamine is the motivation molecule, but it's also for reinforcement. That little hit of success you feel reinforces the planning behavior itself. It creates a positive feedback loop.
Which frees you up to be fully present in the task you're doing,
Right.
instead of worrying about the 10 other things you could be doing.
Precisely. It's the mechanism that lets you engage with the present moment, which is a core teaching in the guide.
Okay, but what if you have the plan, but the internal noise, that monkey mind, is just too loud to focus? That brings us to method 4, meditation.
Right. And this is framed not just as a spiritual thing, but as essential mental exercise. It's about quieting the chatter.
The guide talks about a specific neurological effect here.
Yes, it gets very specific. Consistent meditation actually calms the amygdala. That's the brain's alarm center. It controls fear, anger, that fight or flight response.
So by calming the amygdala, you're basically putting a little space between a trigger and your reaction.
That's the perfect way to describe it. You create space. Meditation trains you to become an inner witness. So when a strong emotion like anger or frustration comes up, instead of getting swept away by it, you just observe it.
You label it like, oh, there's anger arising in my mind.
Exactly. You maintain a little distance. If I'm stuck in traffic and I feel that road rage building, the practice is just to notice it. This is the feeling of anger. And you just watch it without acting on it.
If you can observe the monkey, you are not the monkey.
You are not the monkey. You've achieved separation. And the practice is so accessible. Just 10 or 15 minutes a day, sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, and just watching thoughts come and go. That separation is where your power is.
We've covered dialogue, direction, discipline, and stillness. Which brings us to the final one, method 5, which sort of anchors all of this in the physical world, exercise.
Yes, physical exercise. The principle is simple. A healthy mind needs a healthy body. It's non-negotiable in this guide.
Why is it so foundational?
Well, the guide is very direct. If the body is tired or sick, the mind just can't summon the enthusiasm or the discipline to do any of the other 4 methods effectively. It's the anchor for everything else.
And there's a hormonal reason for that, too.
A powerful one. Exercise releases endorphins, the so-called happiness hormones. They naturally reduce stress hormones like cortisol, they elevate your mood, and they calm your mind. It makes everything else easier.
The source also connects this to ancient wisdom, quoting from the Veda.
It does. Sariram adyam koludharma sadhanam.
Which means,
Loosely, the body is the first instrument for establishing righteousness, or for living a meaningful, successful life. You can't pursue mental mastery if the vehicle you're living in is neglected.
and it doesn't have to be a huge commitment, right? The guide suggests walking, yoga, sports.
Just consistent care. That's the key. Take care of the body, and the mind naturally starts to come under your control. It becomes ready to serve your goals.
So when you connect all 5 of these, the guide is really clear that this isn't some magic trick you do once.
Not at all. It's a continuous journey, a war fought daily. But this is the blueprint for victory.
And they all support each other. The physical foundation from exercise supports a calm mind from meditation.
That stillness allows for disciplined planning. The planning gives you a clear goal.
And the progress reinforces the positive self-talk. It's a complete system.
It is. And the promise of the guide is what should really stick with you. If you commit to this, to ruling your own mind, the world automatically starts to value you more. The journey to becoming the master, not the slave, starts with your very next thought.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? Think about that monkey mind leaping between past and future. The source says that being fully present in the moment releases dopamine, reinforcing that focus. So the question is, what's the smallest, most immediate action you can take right now to fully engage with the task in front of you, trigger that chemical reward, and just train your mind to stay put for a minute? The control really does start with a single breath.